everybody. How are you today? This is Jim Prusak, physical therapist on the Pain PT. And we're going to talk today about how are you responding to your pain? How are you responding to your symptoms? What are you telling yourself? And this is really important because, as I mentioned to a lot of the people I work with, our response is what matters most. And you've heard the saying that stress is 10% what happens to you and 90% of how you respond to it. And the reason why this is because our limbic brain, which is your emotional, reptilian, sort of primitive brain, reacts way faster than your rational, logical thinking brain. It reacts in the form of milliseconds, while your conscious brain comes in afterwards. So we can't stop a lot of the things happening to us. We can't stop the reactions we're getting because they're too fast. So our response to these reactions is what matters most. So how are you responding to your pain? How are you responding to your uncomfortable feelings, your uncomfortable sensations in your body? How are you responding to your mind that might be catastrophizing or spitting out some worrying thoughts or going into hypervigilance? How are you responding to that? This is really, really important. So we want to be responding from a place of safety, from a place of I'm okay, what's happening in me is all right, it's fine, there's nothing wrong with this. This needs to be our response. Okay, so our response comes from the frontal cortex of your brain. That's your logical, thinking, rational mind. It needs to send a message to your sort of irrational, illogical, limbic emotional brain that gives it some information to try to downregulate or to inhibit its reaction. Okay, because these reactions that come from your limbic brain are from your whole life. And so there's an accumulation of maybe events that happen to you, either micro events over life or major traumas. Your limbic brain is going to be working off those in the present moment. So its reaction a lot of times right now has nothing to do with real danger or a real issue. It may be operating off something that happened 10 years ago or 20 years ago. So we need to decipher that. And this is where this logical, rational, smart brain comes in to send a message back to that irrational brain that says, hey, look, I'm fine. This is okay, what you're giving me. I'm not worried about this. If you're getting worrisome thoughts, if you're having a lot of anxious thoughts, or you're sort of in hypervigilance or rumination, the key is to catch that, okay, and to see if you can step out of that as quickly as you can and respond with, okay, that's fine. It's that simple. You can just put it at the end of anything that's happening in you, whether it's an uncomfortable feeling or a persistent sort of obsessive thought. You can say, it's okay. It's all right. That's fine. Because when you do that, you're softening the limbic brain's response. You're dampening it down. If you are responding with, oh no, this is really bad. Oh boy, I better get more worried about this. These symptoms are indication of some damage. I can't do this exercise. I need to stop. I need to pull back in fear. Well, what you're doing is just strengthening that reaction from the limbic brain. You're actually conditioning it to do that more. So your job really is to learn how to respond to this limbic brain that's spitting out these reactions. And so the quicker you can catch those reactions, the better, because then you can sort of step back from that. So this is talking to your brain. Your response is talking to your brain, as Dr. Sarno would say. And we want to talk to our brains, we want to talk to our bodies in a way that says what? That we're fine, we're okay. Because that's how we want to be. We want to be fine, we want to be okay. So we need to start sending the message that we are fine, we are okay. And we can use logic. Sometimes we can say, okay, I'm getting pain sitting in a chair. Okay, I'm getting some symptoms when I'm walking or I'm eating a certain food. And you can just talk to your brain and say, look, this doesn't make any sense. I'm just doing something very normal. This shouldn't cause pain. You can draw upon some of the logic here, and maybe from your test results or from your condition or from your understanding of this TMS, mind body syndrome, and create some evidence that you can use in your brain to counteract this irrational, illogical, emotional brain that's overreacting. Okay, so we want to not react more to the initial reaction. We also don't want to resist that. Okay, that's resistance or reaction. Because when your limbic brain has discharged these uncomfortable feelings into your body, which take the form of symptoms, or they discharge sort of persistent uncomfortable thoughts, negative thoughts, the fastest way to have that stop is to, one, just let it play out, and two, talk to your brain to convince it that it doesn't need to do that anymore, that you're okay, that you're not going to be worried about these thoughts. You're not going to be worried about these symptoms it's created in you. And then what happens is that stuff just sort of goes away. Okay? The initial reaction you can't stop, and the subsequent maybe couple reactions after that you might not be able to stop, but you can certainly at that point intervene with your response and start to downregulate or inhibit subsequent responses from that brain. Okay, by talking to your brain, by telling it, giving it evidence, telling it you're fine, telling it you're not worried about what's happening. And when you tell it that, then you just have to let whatever's been created in you subside. Whatever chemicals that have been stirred up that are your symptoms or your feelings, they will subside if you let them, if you don't worry about them. Okay? So this is how we're working with our brain. Our response is what matters most. Remember, stress is 10% what happens to you and 90% of how you respond to it. So I want you guys to be working on your response throughout your day and to sort of have this response down, because when shit hits the fan, so to speak, or we get a lot of really heavy, uncomfortable feelings, a lot of times our response goes out the window, and we're actually just fueling this fire by having more negative thoughts, more worrying thoughts, more concern. We avoid things, we pull back. That's just reinforcing the thing we don't want. Okay, so let's work on our response, guys. Let's generate this response each and every day. Each and every time you need to use it, have this response down as in terms of what you want to say to what you're feeling in your body or what you're thinking in your head. All right, guys, reach out with questions, concerns. If you have more thoughts on your response and how to do that, just put it in a little chat box here, and I'll try to get back to you guys. And hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.